Hey Steph, do you know what month it is?
January?
Which means we get HHN again this year. Halloween Horror Nights 31.
Of course, and with that, it is never too early to start speculations and rumors for HHN. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about speculations that may be coming to this year's event, as well as some things that we would personally love to see. So all of that is coming up next.
Happy New Year everyone, and welcome back to the channel that takes you through the fog with our very first HHN video of the new year. Man, feels good to say that again. Now if you're new here, be sure to subscribe as well as click that bell icon to be notified when we post new videos, especially about this year's event, HHN 31. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, for it does help our channel to be able to continue creating more Halloween Horror Nights videos. Now we're moving on.
So we know that HHN is a good 8 months away, unfortunately, but there is sure to be plenty to talk about in the next several months, and we're already hearing speculations and rumors for this year's event. So of all of the speculations and rumors that we've heard so far, in today's video we're going to be covering just one, because we believe that it deserves a video all of its own. And then next week we will be covering all of the other speculations and rumors that we have heard so far in a part 2 to this video.
So this one speculation that we're going to be focusing on in this video is probably our favorite by far, and that is to have a 2-park event. Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure will be joining the lineup for Halloween Horror Nights this year. Now they have done this before in past years, and what I mean by past years, we're talking about 2002 through 2005 when Islands of Adventure was part of Horror Nights, and it was called Islands of Fear. And man, was that a fan favorite. Now, one of the main reasons why we believe this is happening, where Islands will be introduced into the lineup this year, is that recently, around early December or so, the HHN Orlando Twitter account recently posted a photo, a throwback photo, to Islands of Fear from 2002. And if you're wondering, what does this have to do with Islands being thrown into the mix? Well, if you guys know HHN, you know that they sometimes throw out some teasers or Easter eggs and just little secrets and stuff to pretty much get us like questioning what's happening. Now, this could be a load of nothing. However, though, knowing HHN and what they do, it could possibly happen.
Don't give me hope.
Like I said, keep in mind, this is not a guarantee that Islands of Fear will be making its return this year for Halloween Horror Nights 31, but you know, at least we can all dream.
Another reason that we have to believe that they may be utilizing Islands of Adventure this year is that Universal Studios may actually be losing 2 areas that they typically do use for HHN. These 2 areas are the Shrek 4D building and the Fear Factor live stage. The Shrek 4D building was typically used for one of the many houses, and recently the Fear Factor live stage has been used for the main stage show of the event. Universal has submitted permits to demolish these 2 areas, so that may mean that they cannot use those areas for HHN 31.
Now, with how popular Nightmare Fuel was last year, we really can't see them using any other space to showcase a show at that size anywhere in Universal. So now we got to think of, where can they put a show at this scale in Universal? Like we said, there really isn't one. In years past, they used to do like little pop-up stages between the streets of Hollywood and Central Park. However, with as busy as Horror Nights has been becoming, it's hard to even do something like that. On top of that, they also have the Lagoon show, the Marathon of Mayhem, which the entrance to that is where it used to have the stage show. So we doubt they would do anything like that inside of Universal.
So the only other place inside of, well, it's kind of inside Universal that we can think of is the Blue Man Group stage, because the Blue Man Group is no longer there, so it's wide open. But like Brian mentioned, the Nightmare Fuel show this last year was very popular. It was honestly even hard to get into a showing if you weren't there 45 minutes early, and we do believe from just our own experience and from some sites that we've seen online that the Blue Man Group's stage, or the amount of people that it can hold, is smaller than the Fear Factor live stage. So it would be kind of hard to have a smaller venue. So with the pop-up stage show not really being in the cards, and Blue Man Group being a little bit smaller of a venue and maybe a little bit harder to fill that demand that we saw for Nightmare Fuel last year, this is exactly why we think that Islands of Adventure would make a much better place for that show.
So let's just take a moment and dream for a second and imagine that Islands of Adventure is in the mix for Halloween Horror Nights 31 this year.
Bring it on.
If one of our complications is where do we put this main show and we have islands in the mix, we know Fear Factor is not a possibility, there's no pop-up stage, and Blue Man Group is kind of a small venue, what can house something as big as like Nightmare Fuel was last year? In our opinion, there's actually two kind of abandoned stage shows that sit in islands right now, one of them being the Toon Lagoon location that they have, but our favorite one would be the Sinbad stage show. Now, since the Sinbad stage is kind of off of the main path, this would actually help solve the issue of that cluster that used to build up in front of the Fear Factor show. If you guys were there at all last year, you know what I'm talking about. They get to a point where they even have to close the path off. So if you're ever kind of crossing that area and that path is closed off, first of all, you have to go all the way around, which kind of sucks. And at the same time, it is just super packed and super busy with people trying to get into Nightmare Fuel, and especially when everybody's getting out of Nightmare Fuel. Plus, the seating for this venue is actually pretty large. We're talking about almost double the seating capacity to what Blue Man Group can hold, and it's actually perfect because it can meet the demand for how many people want to see the main show, as well as keeping things running smoothly since it's kind of off of the main path. Now, I know we're saying the Sinbad Theater, which if you guys know anything about the Sinbad Theater, it's kind of set up for that show. There's lots of props and scenes for it, kind of just there. Now, it would be a lot of work for them to try to like repurpose it to actually use for Halloween Horror Nights this year, but I think it would be kind of cool to still kind of keep it, maybe make it a stunt show or something. Not too sure, that's pretty much on the creative team, but in aspects of it being like efficient for having guests go through and all that stuff, I think it would be a good location for them to have for this year's event.
So now we're going to talk about houses for Islands of Fear, and not necessarily exactly what houses would go there, but more so where they would be able to place them. Now, we get a little stuck on where exactly they could place houses in islands. We do know though that they do have access to the sound stages behind Seuss Landing. Other than those sound stages, we don't really know exactly the layout of islands that they would be able to put houses in. They could potentially though, you know, have some of the pop-up tents like they do use in Universal as well.
However, I'm sure they would have to do like permits in order to get those pop-up tents located anywhere in the park, and really they just don't have the space backstage in any location that could fit a house, as well as really the crowds for the lines, like the queue line and all that. So we would have to do more digging and research, but we know the sound stages have been used before for Islands of Fear, and I think that would be a good location to also split up the crowds to have use of more of the sound stages. Last year in Universal for HHN 30, there was 4 houses that went to the sound stages, but they only used 2 of them because each sound stage pretty much split in half, and they just used each house in each half of that soundstage. So yeah, if they were to do a pop-up tent, they may have to do some permits, which that does take some time, and then to build it and to take it down and all that could be more of a hassle.
There is also the Toon Lagoon stage that is not being used currently, and they could potentially place a smaller house in there or even another stage show, but I'm sure we would both love another house. You know what would be really cool? A house or a trail inside of Poseidon's Fury.
I kind of like that. Like with the water tunnel still going around. And next up is the scare zones. Now, just like the houses, we're not exactly speaking of what scare zones we expect to see, but more of the logistics and where the scare zones could be located. Now, what we have pictured for Islands of Fear is not really a heavy scare zones slash house park.
Oh, come on!
But it's just to give more to the event. It's just adding on to what Universal already has. So really we only see them having about 3 scare zones, maybe even like 2.5. One of them definitely would be down the main entrance to Islands of Fear, just like they pretty much have at Universal as well. And then another one would be in the Lost Continent, not in the area where they would have the Sinbad stage show, but more towards the beginning part. We think they could put a full scare zone right in that section, and then maybe like a roaming horde or another full scare zone in the Toon Lagoon zone. And another big thing with having Islands of Fear into the mix is their attractions. Now, just like Universal for Halloween Horror Nights, they have some of their attractions open up during the event to kind of give people pretty much like a break, if you call it, but also just more things to do at the event. Islands of Adventure has some pretty awesome rides, just like the Velocicoaster, Hagrid's, Hulk, and they can add like Spider-Man, they can add like Doctor Doom's Fearfall, as well as a couple of other things I want to put in there just to enhance the event.
Not only does Islands have some of the best rides at the entire resort, but that would also help kind of keep the crowds down at all of the rides. Last year, the lines for the rides at HHN were longer than they normally are, and on some nights it was just honestly ridiculous. So having more rides open would help kind of spread that out a little bit. And the last thing that we have to talk about HHN potentially having Islands of Fear for this year is potential icons. We would absolutely love to see the Terror Queen back in Islands of Adventure. They did have her last year in HHN 30 in her own street, which was called Borwood Forest. We were honestly a little disappointed in Borwood Forest. It was our #1 most anticipated street. It ended up being towards the bottom of our favorite streets of the year, and the Terror Queen just didn't live up to our expectations.
Yeah, they kind of just like gave her like nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So we would love to see her make her return to Islands in full force. And the other icon that we would absolutely love to see at Islands of Adventure is Fear.
Now, Fear is by far our favorite icon, and the reason why we think it would make sense to put him in Islands of Fear is because it's called Islands of Fear. And I mean, literally it's got his name in it. It'd be cool maybe to have like some of the houses or scare zones like part of his realm or something like that. More of a backstory to Fear that we can see, or a continuation of his story. But a little slogan that like I mentioned or whatever that I think would be cool is if you make Islands of Fear part of Halloween Horror Nights this year and call the like slogan or the motto for the event this year be pretty much Halloween Horror Nights 31, the year of fear. Or fear is the year, whatever you want to say. So yeah, that's not the official slogan. That just would be cool if they used that.
So that does it for our speculation kind of dream for HHN 31 to have Islands of Fear come into the mix. Now, like we said before, we are going to have a part 2 to this video where we are going to go over house speculations and other speculations for HHN 31. So be tuned for that.
Also, be sure to comment down below in this video if you guys have any like cool speculations or rumors that you heard that you would love to see, especially for Islands of Fear, if that comes true this year, which we really do hope so. And like Steph said, we'll be doing one about houses in an upcoming video in about a week or so. So hold off on some of those. If you guys want to write it, go ahead. But we would love to see what you guys think about Islands of Fear making its way into the lineup for Halloween Horror Nights 31 this year. And if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, because like we said, it does help us out, and we do want to be able to talk as much as we can about Halloween Horror Nights. Even though it's just January, it's coming up quick. Like we said, 8 months, but it'll be here before you guys know it. So with that being said, that is it for us in this video, and we cannot wait to catch you guys in the fog. Peace out, guys.
Bye.